This is lesson 7, Inequalities Word Problems. So today we're going to look through some word problems, find the key information so that we can write out our inequalities. So this first one says, the owner of a new restaurant is designing its floor plan. His goal is to have a seating capacity of at least 400 customers. The small tables can seat 3 customers, while the large tables can seat 8 customers. Let X represent the number of small tables and let Y represent the number of large tables. Which inequality best represents all possible combinations? So here, some of our key information would be that we have a capacity of at least 400 customers. That's like one of our totals. Then we have small tables that seat 3 customers. We have large tables that seat 8. And the problem here is already telling us what our variables are and what they represent. So X represents the small number of tables, and then Y represents the number of large tables. Since our total here is talking about the customers, we look at how many customers can be seated at each of the small tables and the large tables. So since we can have 3 customers at the small tables, and the small tables are represented by X, we're going to start by writing 3X. And then we're going to add to that the number of customers at the large tables. At the large tables, which is represented by Y, there can be 8 customers. So we'll have plus 8Y. And because this is an inequality, there won't be an equal sign here. There's going to be some sign, and we'll talk about that in a second. And then the total amount of customers that they can have is 405. But notice it says the capacity is at least 400. Okay, so when you see the words at least, that means the lowest amount we can have is 405, or it can be more than. So at least is more than. So more than would be the symbol that looks like this, our greater than sign. And since we can have at 405, it can equal 405, we're going to put the line under the greater than sign. So we get the equation 3x, or the inequality 3x plus 8y is greater than or equal to 405. As you're writing your inequality, we can cancel out some answer choices as we go through because we have 3x plus 8y. So if you look at the answer choices, some of them have our coefficients here switched. So if you look at answer choices B and D, they both have 8x plus 3y. So we know that our answer could not be those. And our answer here would be A. 3x plus 8y is greater than or equal to 405. Our next problem says, Jasmine is celebrating her birthday at a local pizza parlor. The all-you-can-eat meal costs $8 per adult and $5 per child. She wants to spend no more than $220. Let X represent the number of adults and Y represent the number of children, which inequality best represents all possible combinations. All right, so we're talking about the amount of money we could spend at the local pizza parlor. And there's 2 meal prices, one for adults and one for children. So we know our adult meal costs $8, and then we have our other meals, $5 per child. And Jasmine wants to spend no more than $220. They let us know that our variables here, X and Y, represent the number of adults, and Y represents the number of children. Okay, so let's go ahead and try and write out our inequality. So we're talking about the money that she can spend at this pizza place. And X represents the number of adults. We know each adult plate is $8. So we want 8 times X to represent the total cost for adults. And we want to add to that the total cost of children. Each child's plate, which is represented by Y, is $5, so we have 5 times Y. And at this point, we could pause and look at our answer choices and eliminate some of them. So since we have 8x plus 5y already written down, that means we could eliminate answer choices B and D, because those are not the same as what we just wrote. Now we're going to have some sign after this, and then the total here would be $220. And it says Jasmine can spend no more than $20. This is different than when we see at least something. So when we see the words no more than, that means we don't want to go above the $220 mark. We want to stay everything below it. So no more is going to mean less than. She can spend up to $220, but we don't want to spend anything more. So we want a less than sign, and since we can equal $220, we'll put a line under it. So it's less than or equal to. If we look at our answer choices, that means our answer is C. Our third problem is Mrs. Richardson is baking a multi-tier cake. An 8-inch cake tier will feed 20 guests, and a 12-inch tier will feed 38 guests. In total, these tiers must feed at least 150. Let X represent the number of 8-inch tiers, and let Y represent the number of 12-inch tiers. Okay, so let's look at our key information. We know that the 8-inch tier will feed 20 guests, and the 12-inch tier will feed 38 guests. And then it says in total, they have to feed at least 150. That's important, that at least. Let's look at what our X and Y represent here. X represents the number of 8-inch tiers, and Y represents the number of 12-inch tiers. So let's write our inequality. We know we're looking at the amount of guests we can feed. And so if we want to know how many guests the 8-inch tier will feed, that's represented by X, and 20 guests will be fed with that one. So we have 20 times X. So 20 times however many 8-inch tiers there are gives you the total amount of people who will be fed, plus the 12-inch tier, which is represented by Y, and that one feeds 38. So 38 times Y will represent how many guests can be fed by the 12-inch tier. And so now this combination here has to feed at least 150. Before we go on, we do need to pause and look at where we can eliminate some answer choices. So if we have 20x plus 38y, we can eliminate answer choices A and C, since those do not have the correct coefficients on X and Y. So now we're going to have some sign after this to show that we are feeding at least 150 people. And remember when we see at least, that means the lesser amount, the least it can be is 150, and then it has to be everything more than 150. So our sign here would be greater than, and then we can feed just 150 people. This combination here can equal 150, so we are going to have greater than or equal to as our sign. So that means our answer here is D, as in dog. Here is our last problem. Lola is using yarn to create bracelets. An ankle bracelet requires 5 inches of yarn, and a wrist bracelet requires 7 inches of yarn. She has a total of 150 inches of yarn. Let X represent the number of ankle bracelets, and let Y represent the number of wrist bracelets. Which inequality best represents all possible combinations? So our key information here. An ankle bracelet requires 5 inches of yarn. A wrist bracelet requires 7 inches of yarn. She has a total of 150 inches of yarn. Okay, so X is representing the number of ankle bracelets, and Y is representing the number of wrist bracelets. So to find the combination here, we are talking about the inches of yarn. And so for each ankle bracelet, which is represented by X, we know she needs 5 inches for each ankle bracelet. So that means 5 times X, which will represent the total amount of inches of yarn for ankle bracelets. Then we add to this the total amount of yarn she'll need for wrist bracelets, which is 7 times Y, because Y represents the wrist bracelets. We can pause here, look at our answer choices. 5X plus 7Y is what we have so far, so we can eliminate some answer choices. We're going to eliminate answer choices A and D, since their coefficients are incorrect. Okay, so as we write this combination here, 5X plus 7Y will have some sign after it, and then she has a total amount of 150 inches of yarn. So here, if we have a total of 150 inches, that means she can't make anything to where she needs more than 150 inches. She has to stay at 150 or below. Okay, so that means our sign here would have to be less than 150 or equal to it, but we can't go above 150 inches of yarn. So that means our answer would be B, as in boy.